Welcome to ICAN Intelligence. Today, we are going to master Chapter 18, Business Valuations. And my goal here is really simple. By the end of this explainer, you will have the clarity and the confidence to dismantle any valuation question that comes your way in the financial management exam. All right, let's take a look at our roadmap. We're going to move step by step through 6 key sections. We'll build your knowledge from the ground up, starting with the basic principles and moving all the way to the core theories, making sure you are absolutely ready for whatever the examiner throws at you. Okay, first things first. Before we touch a single formula or calculation, we have to establish the foundation. We need to understand why this chapter is so incredibly important, not just for your exam, but in the real world of finance. So you might be asking, when do we actually need to do this? Well, think about major high-stakes business events. It's absolutely essential during mergers and acquisitions, like a takeover bid. You have to know what to pay. For management buyouts, it's what sets the price. It's crucial for valuing shares in unquoted companies that don't have a public market price. It's also required for taxation purposes, for example, calculating inheritance tax, or for huge corporate shakeups, like schemes of arrangement or capital reorganizations. And sometimes it's even used simply as a performance measure, like a report card for how management is doing. Every single one of these scenarios depends on a solid, defensible valuation. Now, let's just pause here for a moment. This is important. I want you to put your examiner's hat on. When you see a valuation question, what is the real skill being tested? I promise you, it goes much deeper than just punching numbers into a calculator. And here's the answer, and it's absolutely key to passing this paper. The examiner is testing your judgment. They want to see that you can look at a business scenario, pick the most appropriate valuation method from your toolkit, do the calculation correctly, and, this is the most important part, justify why you chose that tool and discuss its weaknesses. That justification, that discussion, that's where the top marks are earned. All right, let's get into our first set of tools, the asset-based models. I want you to think of these as setting a baseline, an absolute minimum value for a business. It's what we call the floor value. The core idea here is actually beautifully simple and logical. At the very least, a company has to be worth the sum of its parts, right? If you sold off every single asset, the buildings, the machines, everything, and then paid off every single liability, whatever cash is left over is its fundamental baseline worth. Now, how you choose which method to use comes down to one critical thing, the assumption given in the exam scenario. For net book value, we're taking figures straight from the balance sheet, which are based on historical cost, and we're assuming the business is a going concern, that it will keep trading. For net realizable value, we assume the complete opposite. We assume the business is being broken up, liquidated, and its assets sold off one by one. And finally, with replacement cost, we're back to a going concern assumption, but instead of historical cost, we ask, what would it cost to replace these assets today? The scenario in your exam question will always guide you to the right choice. To really score well, you have to be able to talk about both sides of the coin here. The advantages, well, they're pretty clear. These models are simple to calculate. They're based on objective, audited figures, and they give us that really useful minimum or floor value. But, and this is a big but, the disadvantages are where you truly show your understanding. They completely ignore a company's future ability to make profits, the book values can be hopelessly out of date, and they have a really hard time valuing intangible assets, like a brand's reputation, which could be where the real value lies. So the key takeaway is that these models offer simplicity, but they are blind to the future. So we've just seen that asset-based models are stuck in the past or the present. They can't see the future. And that's a huge problem, isn't it? Well, that's exactly where our next set of models comes in. We're now shifting our focus from what a company owns to what a company can earn. These methods are incredibly popular because they connect value directly to what investors care about most, profitability. The price to earnings, or PE ratio, is the most common. It basically asks how many times its annual profit is the market willing to pay for this company. The earnings yield is just the flip side of that, turning it into a percentage return. And the enterprise value to EBITDA multiple is a more robust, heavy-duty tool often used in takeovers because it looks at the whole company, debt included, and compares it to core operational profit, which strips out some of the noise from accounting choices. Okay, now for a formula that is an absolute cornerstone of this topic. You must know this one inside and out. This is the Dividend Valuation Model, or DVM. You have to commit this formula to memory. The logic is that the value of a share today is simply the present value of all the future dividends that share is expected to pay out. Now listen, to get full marks, it is not enough to just plug in the numbers. You have to show the examiner you know what each piece of this puzzle actually means. So P naught is the price we're trying to find today, ex-dividend. D naught is the most recent dividend that was just paid. G is the constant annual growth rate of those dividends, and that's a huge assumption we'll talk about in a moment. And KE is the cost of equity, which is the return that shareholders demand for taking on the risk of investing. Get any one of these wrong, and your whole answer falls apart.
Right, let's do this again. The examiner is not just going to give you some numbers and say, calculate. I can almost guarantee you they will also ask you to critique the model you've just used. So let's imagine the question is, discuss the limitations of the dividend valuation model. How would you build a high-scoring answer?
A really strong answer, a distinction-level answer, is going to hit these 4 key points. First, the idea of a constant dividend growth rate going on forever is just not realistic for most companies. Second, the model is completely useless for young, high-growth companies that don't pay dividends because they reinvest everything. Third, the model is incredibly sensitive. A tiny little change in your estimate for G or KE can cause a massive swing in the final valuation. And finally, actually calculating the cost of equity, KE, is a difficult and subjective process itself. Nailing these points in your answer demonstrates true understanding, not just memory.
Excellent. So we've covered equity, but a company's total value isn't just about its shares. We also need to be able to value its debt instruments. So let's cover the principles for that right now.
The good news is the underlying principle here is exactly the same as everything else we've looked at. The value of any financial asset is the present value of its future cash flows. For irredeemable debt, which never gets paid back, it's a simple perpetuity formula. For redeemable debt, you have to find the present value of 2 things: the stream of annual interest payments and the final lump sum you get back at redemption. For convertible debt, it's a 2-step process. You value it as straight debt, then you value what the shares would be worth upon conversion. Its market value will be the higher of those 2. The principle never changes. Discount the future cash flows. Okay, we're going to switch gears a bit now. We've been deep in calculations, but now we need to look at a massive theoretical concept that underpins all of modern finance: the efficient market hypothesis, or EMH. So what's the big idea behind the EMH? In a nutshell, it's that you can't be a stock-picking genius and consistently beat the market. And why not? Because the market isn't stupid. The theory says that all known information, everything from past prices to public news to even private insider knowledge, is already factored into the current share price. There are no 20-pound notes just lying on the pavement waiting for you to pick them up. And the EMH isn't just one single idea. It comes in 3 distinct forms, and you are expected to know the difference. In the weak form, all past price information is already in the price, which means looking at charts to predict the future, technical analysis, is useless. In the semi-strong form, all public information is in the price, which implies that even deep diving into financial statements, fundamental analysis, is also useless. And in the purely theoretical strong form, all information, both public and private, is in the price, meaning even trading on illegal insider tips wouldn't give you an advantage. Understanding these 3 levels and what they imply is a very common theory question. Right, we've covered a lot of ground. Let's pull all of this together now and focus squarely on what matters most: how you apply this knowledge in the exam hall to secure every possible mark. Okay, I want you to pause the explainer right now. Seriously, try to answer these 3 exam-style questions, either out loud or by jotting down some notes. This is active recall, and it is the single most powerful way to lock this knowledge into your long-term memory. The first question tests your ability to apply the right tool, the second tests your grasp of a model's weaknesses, and the third is a pure theory distinction that examiners love to ask. Give it a go. So, to summarize, if you're going to take just a few things into the exam from this whole chapter, let it be these 4 pillars. 1, valuation is all about context. You must pick the right tool for the job. 2, you have to master the key formulas, especially the DVM. 3, justify everything. Your reasoning is just as important as your final number. And 4, understand the core theory of the EMH and its 3 forms. If you can master these, you will be in a fantastic position to tackle this topic. I really hope this detailed breakdown has helped build your confidence for the exam. If you found it valuable, please take a moment to like this explainer and subscribe to ICAN Intelligence. It really helps us reach and support more students just like you. If you have any questions, please drop them in the comments and be sure to share this with your fellow students. We are here to help you succeed. Good luck with your studies.